Nostradamus was one of the most enigmatic and interesting men in history. One thing you have to understand about the prophecies is this is material that could cost Nostradamus' life.
And it is incumbent on us to use this wisely.
How is he doing these things? He must be working with the devil.
From the bloody chaos of the French Revolution to the fiery destruction of London and the shattering blasts of the atomic bombs that ended World War II, these times in history were foretold centuries before they happened. Now, another centuries-old prophecy from the enigmatic Nostradamus has resurfaced, sparking fear and curiosity. What did the seer predict for the royal family? Can his words truly foretell the future? Join us on a thrilling journey as we uncover the chilling Nostradamus prophecy that has left everyone on edge. Who is Nostradamus? In the early years of the 16th century, in the quaint town of Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, a child was born to Jaume de Nostradamus, a notary, and Renière, the granddaughter of a respected physician. This child, Michel de Nostradamus, would grow up to become known to the world as Nostradamus, a name that would resonate through the ages with an air of mystery and prophetic wonder. Michel's early years were filled with the vibrancy of a large family, being one of at least 9 children. His curiosity and intellect shone brightly from a young age, and at 14, he embarked on a scholarly journey at the University of Avignon. However, the relentless plague that swept through the region forced the university to close its doors, abruptly halting his formal education. Undeterred, young Michel roamed the countryside for 8 years, immersing himself in the study of herbal remedies. His journey through fields and forests, meeting healers and wise folk, nurtured a deep understanding of nature's medicines. This knowledge would serve him well when he later enrolled at the University of Montpellier in 1529, aiming to attain a doctorate in medicine. Fate, however, had other plans. Michel's past as an apothecary, a profession frowned upon by the university, came back to haunt him. The student procurator, Guillaume Rondelet, expelled him, seeing his background as incompatible with the institution's standards. Yet Michel's resolve was unshaken. He continued to practice as an apothecary, earning a reputation for his innovative remedies. Among these was his famed rose pill, believed to offer protection against the dreaded plague that had once disrupted his studies. Seeking solace and stability, Nostradamus finally settled in Salon de Provence. It was here that he married Anne Ponsard, a wealthy widow. Their union brought a new chapter of happiness as they welcomed 6 children into the world, 3 daughters and 3 sons. Nostradamus seemed to have it all. He and Anne were fortunate to own a portion of the Canal de Craponne, a remarkable project designed by Adam de Craponne. This canal aimed to bring water from the river Durance to irrigate the dry lands of Salon de Provence and the nearby Désert de la Croix. With wealth and a family, Nostradamus had what many desired in that era. Yet, despite his apparent fulfillment, something felt lacking. The man who saw the end of time. In the midst of his personal trials and professional endeavors, Nostradamus continued to search for his purpose in life, and after another visit to Italy, a shift began to stir within him. The world of medicine, which had once defined his purpose, slowly gave way to the allure of the occult. Embracing the popular trends of the time, he penned an almanac for the year 1550. It was in this publication that he first Latinized his name to Nostradamus, a name that would soon echo through history. The almanac's success was nothing short of astonishing. Buoyed by this triumph, Nostradamus resolved to make this an annual endeavor. Over the years, these almanacs accumulated an impressive collection of at least 6,338 prophecies and 11 annual calendars, each starting on January 1st. His reputation soared as nobility and prominent figures from distant lands sought his horoscopes and psychic advice. Nostradamus then embarked on his most ambitious project yet, a book of 1,000 quatrains, written mainly in French. These quatrains, filled with enigmatic and undated prophecies, would become his most famous work. Aware of the potential for religious opposition, he cleverly obscured his meanings using a blend of Virgilianized syntax, word games, and a mixture of languages including Greek, Italian, Latin, and Provençal. The publication of Nostradamus's quatrains in his book Les Prophéties stirred a whirlwind of reactions. The mysterious verses sparked a spectrum of opinions. Some branded him a servant of evil, a fraud, or even insane. However, among the elite, he found a significant following. One of his most ardent admirers was Catherine de' Medici, the wife of King Henry II of France. The year was 1555 when Catherine first encountered his almanacs, which contained cryptic hints of threats to the royal family. Intrigued and perhaps unsettled, she summoned Nostradamus to Paris. The journey filled him with trepidation. He feared he might face execution. Yet, his audience with the queen marked a turning point. She sought explanations for his ominous predictions and requested horoscopes for her children. Far from facing the axe, Nostradamus's relationship with the royal family flourished. Queen Catherine had appointed him as counselor and physician in ordinary to her son, the young King Charles IX of France. Despite his royal favor, Nostradamus's life was not without peril. Some accounts suggest he feared persecution by the Inquisition for heresy, but his practices in prophecy and astrology did not typically attract such charges. It was only when he dabbled in magic that he risked crossing dangerous lines. By 1566, Nostradamus was in the final throes of a long battle with gout, a condition that had tormented him for years and made even the simplest movements a painful ordeal. His health further deteriorated into edema, leaving him increasingly debilitated. On the evening of July 1st, Nostradamus, sensing the imminent approach of death, confided in his secretary, Jean de Chavigny, saying, "You will not find me alive at sunrise." True to his words, the next morning he was discovered lifeless, lying on the floor beside his bed and a bench. Just as he predicted his own death, throughout the centuries, Nostradamus's prophecies have fascinated and baffled scholars and enthusiasts alike. While his cryptic verses are often open to interpretation, many of his predictions have been startlingly accurate. Trouble in the palace. Just 20 months after ascending the throne following Queen Elizabeth's passing in 2022, King Charles might be on the verge of leaving the throne after he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. The specifics of his condition were shrouded in royal secrecy, but the revelation ignited a storm of concern and speculation among the public and experts alike. British author Mario Reading, an expert in Nostradamus's enigmatic prophecies, unearthed a particularly ominous prediction from the seer's writings. This prophecy, eerily coinciding with the king's diagnosis, suggested that King Charles's rule could indeed be cut short. Nostradamus's verses hinted at the monarch's downfall, alluding to a possible abdication or removal from the throne. A particularly striking passage read, "King of the Isles, driven out by force, replaced by one who will have no mark of a king." This cryptic line spurred theories that Prince Harry, an unexpected contender, might ascend the throne, meaning that there would be a power tussle for the crown. Some experts believed that while the prediction of his rule ending might be accurate, it might not occur exactly as foretold. They suggested that, rather than being forcibly removed, King Charles might step down due to health issues or a lack of desire to continue his reign. Despite the various theories, the potential fulfillment of Nostradamus's prophecy seemed less surprising given his history of accurate predictions, including Queen Elizabeth's age and the year of her demise. However, skepticism persisted. Critics argued that Nostradamus had not explicitly mentioned King Charles in his writings. They suggested that the prophecy about the King of the Isles being driven out could have referred to a French monarch instead. This ambiguity left room for doubt and debate, with many asserting that only time would reveal the true outcome. What to expect if the prophecy is fulfilled? As whispers about a possible abdication circulate, speculations have risen regarding Prince William's readiness to take on the role of king. While Nostradamus's predictions didn't directly mention Prince William as the heir, experts pointed to his position as next in line to the throne if King Charles were to step down. This reasoning suggested that the 41-year-old Duke of Cambridge could indeed be the rightful heir to the crown. Close sources hinted at the prince's increasing interest in the complexities of rulership and his aspirations for a more impactful role than his father's. Friends disclosed to the Daily Beast that the prince was immersing himself in the intricacies of kingship, envisioning a time when he would have greater influence and authority over the realm. The question remained, was Prince William merely fulfilling his duties as the heir apparent, or was he actively gearing up to assume the role of king earlier than expected? While the idea of Prince William's rise to the throne gains traction amidst talk of King Charles possibly stepping down, a prediction from Nostradamus paints a different picture. In the Prophecies, the seer disclosed that the King of the Isles, who will be forcefully removed from power, will be replaced by someone without the typical attributes of a monarch. This latter part has sparked widespread speculation about Prince Harry possibly taking the throne. Despite Prince Harry's ineligibility and his voluntary withdrawal from royal duties for a freer life in the United States with his wife, the American actress Meghan Markle, Nostradamus' prediction fuels the speculation that he could unexpectedly assume the throne. Prince Harry's departure from traditional royal norms, including marrying outside the royal family, stirred significant controversy in the media and strained his relationship with his family, notably his father. Upon learning about Charles's cancer diagnosis, Prince Harry hastily flew to the country via a private plane to be by his father's side. This sudden return lends some weight to Nostradamus' prediction about someone with unconventional characteristics taking over from Charles. Author Mario Reading has interpreted this prediction as hinting at the surprising prospect of Prince Harry ruling in the future. While currently unlikely, this mysterious royal forecast has sparked various interpretations among different groups. Most historians believe that while Charles's abdication might come to pass, the idea of Prince Harry becoming king seems improbable, given that Prince William, who has been groomed for the British throne his whole life, is next in line. Another faction speculates that Prince Harry's possible ascension is tied to the king's forceful removal from the throne, suggesting that civil unrest in the country could lead King Charles to step down prematurely, paving the way for Harry's coronation instead of William's. If Nostradamus' prediction about Prince Harry assuming the throne proves accurate, it would mark a fascinating turn in the royal family's history. But still, more theologians have a different interpretation: the end of the royal family. Some theologians suggest that Nostradamus might have hinted at a change in the United Kingdom's governmental system. The British royal family's roots can be traced back to the 10th century, when the kingdoms of England and Scotland merged from smaller Anglo-Saxon and early medieval Scottish kingdoms. Since then, the monarchy system has been firmly established, stretching back centuries. However, speculation arose that Nostradamus' prediction could indicate a shift in the ruling system. The phrase, "someone with no mark of a king taking over the government," might imply someone from outside the royal family ending their rule in the country. If such an event were to unfold, King Charles's reign would signal the end of the monarchy system and the royal family's governance over the country. Following this, a completely democratic government might take its place. Despite facing numerous challenges in recent years, most experts brush off the possibility of a complete governmental overhaul in the country. They argue that while Nostradamus may have foreseen King Charles's removal from kingship, his prophecies don't necessarily suggest a systematic change of government in the United Kingdom. This is partly because the current monarchs wield significant power and influence, with no substantial opposition capable of ousting them from government. However, it remains uncertain whether opposition might arise in the future. Only time will tell whether King Charles will be the last monarch of the United Kingdom, or if there are more to follow. The French Revolution. Talking about the royal family losing power, the seer predicted the downfall of the French royal family. In his words, he said that, from the enslaved populace, songs, chants, and demands will rise. While princes and lords are held captive in prisons, these will later be received as divine prayers by headless idiots. We can think of the enslaved populace as the Third Estate, the common people of France, who mostly lived in terrible poverty and faced many unfair treatments. From 1789 to the late 1790s, there was a lot of social and political turmoil in 18th century France. During this time, French citizens rose up in furious anger against a system that failed to recognize the extent of their suffering. Before the revolution began, peasants, then classified as serfs and tied to a certain servitude, faced high taxes and harsh duties imposed by aristocratic landlords. King Louis XIV and his spoiled queen, Madame Deficit, did try to ease the financial burden on the French people in some ways, changing certain laws to benefit the peasantry, and even hosting public dinners at the Palace of Versailles. The monarchy was not blind to the struggles of the people. However, they were extremely short-sighted, jaded by their own privilege, and unable to address the major problems of their subjects. Regardless of how kind the king and queen tried to be, the bottom line was that France could neither feed itself nor pay off its looming debt. This lack of awareness led to their downfall. While the disconnect between the lavish lifestyle of palace life and the commoner's desperation is now seen as a key reason for the French Revolution, it also led to Marie Antoinette and King Louis XIV, along with others, losing their well-groomed heads. But it wasn't the only reason. A severe bread and grain shortage had erupted in the kingdom, compounded by a growing awareness and intellect among the middle class, which became increasingly frustrated with their limited resources. And then, of course, there were the Americans. King Louis XIV was a forward-thinking man, excited by the Enlightenment and ready to embrace liberal change. As a result, he supported the rebellion in the Americas, where the colonists were fighting their British rulers. He sent soldiers, ships, and abundant supplies to help the fight for liberation. Despite the king's good intentions, this support weakened France politically and economically, two things the French nobility were not willing to pay for through higher taxes. In an ironic twist, King Louis helped the Americans overthrow their distant British king, accruing a massive debt in the process. After frustrating parliamentarians seeking significant change, King Louis eventually allowed the new National Assembly to draft a constitution to help everyone in French society without overburdening any specific class. But while the king appeared to agree, he secretly armed his palace. In response, the assembly created a national guard for self-defense. The king had united the people under the National Assembly, but he failed to get tax money from the rich, failed to organize his parliament, and failed to control the power of the National Guard. In 1789, the French people decided they had enough of aristocratic rule. After an angry mob forcibly removed the king and queen from Versailles and placed them under close watch in the Tuileries Palace, things grew worse. A failed escape led to more scrutiny from people who believed the royal family didn't care about their well-being. When the king refused to step down, the National Assembly, now called the National Convention, declared the monarchy illegal in the newly liberated France. The king and queen lost their titles, and soon, their heads. The Third Estate revolted and stormed the Bastille, a fortress in Paris used as a prison. The fall of the Bastille symbolized the monarchy's abuse of power and marked the height of the French Revolution. The determined peasants quickly took control of Paris and enforced their demands by capturing the royals. The headless part of the prophecy refers to the guillotine. Although the French Revolution ultimately failed to achieve its goals and often turned into a chaotic bloodbath, the rebellion itself is still considered one of the most significant turning points in the formation of the modern world. Throughout history, people have struggled with issues of class and privilege. Frustrated and angry about the poor economic policies of the time, French citizens ultimately took it upon themselves to dismantle this oppressive system. They envisioned a new national landscape for themselves, where century-old institutions like the feudal system and absolute monarchy could be replaced with more fair and sustainable ones. Death of Henry II. Nostradamus's prophecies had a significant connection to the royal families of his time. In his book of Prophecies, he decoded that a young lion would defeat an old lion in a battle on a war field in single combat. This prediction, which seemed to come true, greatly enhanced his reputation. In the summer of 1559, the King of France held grand weddings for his daughter and sister, featuring a large tournament to celebrate. King Henry II, wanting to show off his skills as a warrior, challenged the renowned Count of Montgomery to single combat. During their joust with blunted lances, Montgomery's lance broke, and the sharp point went through the eye slit of Henry II's helmet, piercing his eye. After 10 days of excruciating pain, Henry died. Everyone, including Montgomery, who was unfortunate enough to have killed the king, credited Nostradamus with predicting the event. Despite the prophecy's ambiguous wording, "He will put out his eyes in a cage of gold, 2 fleets won, then he dies a cruel death." The prophecy contained interesting details. The young lion and old lion both had lion-emblazoned shields. Count Montgomery, younger than the king, fit the young lion description. Although the tournament might not strictly qualify as a field of war, it took place on the Champ de Mars in Paris, which means Field of Wars, directly referencing the location. Most importantly, the Queen believed that Nostradamus had foreseen her husband's fate more accurately than any of the 30,000 astrologers in Paris, making him her favorite. Napoleon's rise to power. Nostradamus not only predicted the death of a king, but also the rise of another powerful man. In his work, The Prophecies, he penned cryptic verses that seemed to foretell significant events, including one that reads, "Pau, nay, Lauron, more fire than blood. Swimming in praise, the great man hurries to the confluence. He will refuse entry to the magpies. Pampon and Durance will confine them." Pau, Nay, and Lauron were initially thought to be straightforward references to 3 towns in France. However, Nostradamus was known for his use of anagrams and wordplay. Rearranging the letters of these towns spells Napoleon Roy, resembling Napoleon the King in French. The phrase, "more fire than blood," has been interpreted as a nod to Napoleon's humble beginnings, suggesting that his ascent to power would be marked by fiery ambition rather than noble lineage. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte seized control of France through a series of political maneuvers. France was embroiled in conflicts with several nations, including Great Britain, Russia, Austria, and others. Despite setbacks, such as the loss of his fleet at the Battle of the Nile, Napoleon managed to establish his influence in Egypt, disrupting British trade routes and expanding his own power. Meanwhile, discontent brewed within France as the Directory, the ruling government, faced criticism for its ineffectiveness and the country's dire economic situation. Sensing an opportunity, Napoleon returned to France amidst political turmoil and forged alliances with key figures like Emmanuel Joseph Sieyès, a prominent political thinker, and others who shared his desire for change. On November 9, 1799, the coup orchestrated by Napoleon and his allies unfolded. Under the guise of protecting the government from a supposed Jacobin plot, Napoleon's forces secured key locations and pressured the legislative bodies to dissolve the Directory. In its place, a new government was formed, with Napoleon positioned as one of the 3 consuls. Napoleon's coup within a coup solidified his grip on power, paving the way for further consolidation of authority. Despite his initial collaboration with Sieyès, Napoleon maneuvered to assert his dominance, ultimately positioning himself as the de facto leader of France. The reference to refusing entry to the magpies aligns with Napoleon's actions against 2 successive popes, Pius VI and VII, whom he detained during his reign. These events, seemingly foretold by Nostradamus centuries earlier, showed how powerful the seer indeed was. Other shocking prophecies by Nostradamus. Besides his predictions about politics and royalty, Nostradamus also foretold some sad events that came true in our time. One such prophecy is about the atomic bomb. In his book, he wrote, "The heavenly dart withstretched its course, death in the speaking. A great achievement. The proud nation brought low by the stone in the tree. Rumors of a monstrous human bring purge, then expiation." Many years later, in August of 1952, the United States dropped 2 huge bombs on Japan, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These bombs were different from anything seen before and caused immense destruction. Some say this event marked the end of World War II. People who survived the bomb blasts suffered greatly from radiation sickness, and many died. Nostradamus's mention of a stone in the tree could describe the shape of the massive cloud that rose above the cities after the bombs exploded. It might also mean something like a bomb, which is like a stone, unexpectedly appearing where it shouldn't, in the sky or near trees. Nostradamus had another unsettling vision that seems to have come true, especially with the tragic events of September 11th. In his writings, he said, "The sky will burn at 45 degrees. Fire approaches the great new city. By fire, he will destroy their city. With a cold and cruel heart, blood will pour. Mercy to none." On that fateful morning of September 11th, 2001, airplanes taken over by terrorists crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. Experts think the mention of 45 degrees might refer to New York City's position near the 45th line of latitude on the globe. Alternatively, it could describe how the burning towers seemed to lean at a 45-degree angle before they collapsed, even though they actually fell straight down. Nostradamus also predicted the Great Fire of London, Louis Pasteur's discoveries, the rise of Hitler, Charles de Gaulle's times as ruler, the JFK assassination, and the death of Queen Elizabeth. Do you think his prediction about the king will be fulfilled? Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.